I, I slipped on a root. They get wet at night with dew, and I fell like 100 feet. Or I don't know. I fell down far enough so they couldn't see me. I just. I don't understand. I made up my story. The monster wasn't real. Today on the Comic Book Report, Something is Killing the Children, Deluxe Edition Book 1, from Boom Studios. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're taking a look at the first 15 issues of Something is Killing the Children. For those that perhaps don't know, this is a modern horror action series from Boom Studios, and it's a really riveting read. We'll be taking a look at today's issues in this gorgeous oversized hardcover edition, courtesy of Boom Studios. Thank you again to everyone over there for sending this review copy. And for those that have been watching my channel for some time, I did review the first 2 trade paperbacks in a single video earlier on in my channel. Personally, I read the first 4 paperback volumes of this series before kind of setting it down. This is my first chance to go back into this series, and it was so much fun on reread. But let's go ahead and get started with today's review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by James Tynion IV and penciled by Werther Dell'Edera. The comics in this volume were published by Boom Studios beginning in 2019. The volume itself collects Something is Killing the Children, issues 1 through 15. And finally, this oversized hardcover edition has nice glossy print paper stock, a sewn binding, and a total of 384 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that oversized hardcover from Boom Studios. I should note there is one more prestigious edition of this book that is basically this book with a nice hardcover slipcase that it slides into, but the book itself should be identical. And for those who prefer paperback, the issues included in this volume are broken across the first 3 volumes of the trade paperback line. But I absolutely love this cover, and I just really like how this book's constructed. Along the spine, we have a beautiful design here. We have that same Something is Killing the Children font with this white lettering. We have the Boom Studios logo. We have some of the creators and the one at the bottom there. We have some beautiful kind of bluish color. I don't really know exactly what color this is, but it's absolutely gorgeous. You can see it on the front cover as well as the back, but really, really pretty stuff. And the back of the hardcover is pretty sparse. It's a field of black with this cool kind of dragon pierced logo that we get for the House of Slaughter. That same kind of bluish color for that little logo. Really nice. We have some pricing, things like that at the bottom. Whoever designed the exteriors of this hardcover should absolutely be commended. I think it looks just absolutely gorgeous, and it looks great on a bookcase. Transitioning to the binding for a moment, I mentioned it earlier, I believe this is a sewn binding. It's a little bit hard to tell, but I believe this is a sewn copy. The binding is really strong here, perhaps a little stiff, but it holds together nicely and lays out pretty good when you go through it. Overall, I have no complaints, and it's probably the best bound Boom Studios hardcover I have in my collection. And now that we wrap up the build of the book, I will say that there is no dust jacket for this hardcover. It is just the hardcover volume itself, like many of their other hardcover collection. This edition is also bigger than an omnibus, so it is an oversized hardcover format, which is nice. I'll do a quick kind of scale or size comparison with a standard size trade paperback. Standard size paperbacks are the size of a single issue comic, so you'll get kind of an idea of just how much larger this volume actually is compared to the issues you might have picked up at the comic shop. Okay, and with that, we're off to the races. After we open up the book with some nice black end pages, we have kind of a title page, we have the creator breakdown pages with some publication information, things like that, and then basically we jump right into the first issue. Setting up that issue, we actually don't have the cover for the issue, we have a chapter break, so it says chapter 1, and then we begin. Unfortunately, the only downside I have for this collection is that we don't have the comic covers included in this volume. Not between the issues and not even collected in the back. That's right, this deluxe edition does not have a cover art gallery, unfortunately, but it has just about everything else I was hoping for. It has all of the issues, and we have some great kind of afterwards and essay kind of interview material at the back. At any rate, this first issue and this series in general really does start with a bang. We basically have a group of boys playing Truth or Dare at a sleepover, and this game eventually takes some twists and turns that, frankly, none of them expected. We basically have them talking about what was one of the scariest moments in their life, and the main character, James, talks about a time where he sees a monster in a ravine, and he kind of dares everyone to go down there and explore, and that's kind of how we have this series set up. After that quick montage of the Truth or Dare game, we go into an interview where basically James is getting interrogated by a police officer or law enforcement saying this was all made up, he doesn't understand what happened, and we find out that all of his other friends were murdered by a monster, and he's trying to pitch that to the police officials. And then we go to this kind of double page spread of something is killing the children. We have that same stylized font. And then after that, we're introduced to the other main character, and honestly central character to the whole series here, Erica Slaughter. We have her coming out from a forest, kind of bloodied, after presumably dispatching another kind of monster and saving a young girl. The introduction of this character, I feel like, is just spot on and excellent. I love that we're not told about all the mythos. We just see her in action, or at least after the action. We get a lot of her personality and her quirks, even in this early scene, and it really sets up who this character is going to be. After that, we basically have these two different worlds collide as Erica goes to the town of Archer's Peak, where this kind of monster killing has occurred at the beginning of the series, and we have her investigating and ultimately trying to help the children in this city to be rid of these monsters. I do want to say as well earlier in this video that these first 15 issues that are included in this hardcover comprise the first major story arc for this series. Why that's important is because this can be read cover to cover as one complete kind of event or just storyline. I really enjoy that. After this point, we have some issues that are kind of a prequel that go into more of her history, and then we begin the second huge story arc sometime after that. But no, for this deluxe edition, they just collected the first main story, and I think that was absolutely brilliant because you can get a great beginning, middle, and end all in this single volume. I'm not going to go into every single little nuance of this book, but essentially plot-wise, for the remainder of this volume, we basically have Erica befriending this child, James. We know it's also to try to use him to get resources or intelligence as to what happened. At one point, he's even used as kind of bait. But he's a really great character, and honestly, the relationship between the two of them is quite good. I like how they foil each other, and I just think it's a great kind of central rock to build this whole story against. We also have a lot of great supporting cast members, like the kind of personnel at the local police department, some of James's classmates, or his principal, or kind of things like that. And then we have the kind of organization that Erica represents. She's from something called the House of Slaughter, which we kind of slowly get more details about throughout this volume. Essentially, they're a kind of Men in Black sort of organization, but they hunt monsters, and they're honestly a little bit monstrous themselves as far as some of the ways they operate. Sometimes trying to keep these kind of monster incidences hushed up and away from media attention is almost a more primary goal than saving innocent people and children. Erica is really on the fence with this group, and honestly, in this first volume, you get the feeling that she's sort of going rogue or kind of taking matters into her own hands. We do get more exploration and lore building for this organization in subsequent issues and some of the spin-off series like House of Slaughter and things like that. In these issues as well, we have more and more children that have disappeared in this small town. We have more bodies, and we have the police department just really not sure what to do. And we have Erica coming in with a backpack full of weapons, asking questions, and at one point she's kind of arrested, and they believe that she might be the one responsible. We actually have the older brother of one of the young girls who's gone missing also kind of accuse her and try to hold her at gunpoint. He gets kind of caught up in this whole central storyline as well. Erica basically does something to him so he can see the monsters, because in this world only children can see monsters, and of course the members of this kind of monster hunting class, or in this case those of the House of Slaughter. Another thing I really like about how Tynion broke down the plot in this series and these first couple issues, or really even this first arc, is I like that we are introduced to more of Erica's history and kind of the House of Slaughter as kind of a separate part of the storyline to everything else that's going on in Archer's Peak. But we gradually have those worlds coming closer and closer together until they ultimately collide, where we have different people from the House of Slaughter dispatched to handle Erica, and then when things go further sideways, kind of an elite team from the House of Slaughter that have to kind of do cleanup. And so we have a point where the main characters are really trying to fight both the monsters and the members of the House of Slaughter outside of Erica. I enjoyed that. I think there's a lot of good layering to the plot that seems absolutely logical, but also kind of nuanced and complex in just, yeah, a really terrific way. And again, while there are so many other great plot bits and moments throughout this book, essentially things kind of begin to land story-wise when Erica basically goes after the remaining monsters. She's also kind of assisted and in some ways kind of threatened by this stuffed animal octopus she has, who we find out as well in these issues that basically this creature murdered her parents and her best friend, and she somehow imprisoned its essence and changed it and sealed it into her favorite stuffed animal, and now this thing is kind of sentient and goes around with her. It's kind of a malevolent presence, but it has its uses. Anyway, Erica, this octopus stuffed animal, along with James and, the older brother, all kind of get together with some of the local law enforcement who eventually get looped into what's going on, and they try to, again, stop the bad guys. And again, at the end, we have both the monsters and the House of Slaughter members becoming the bad guys. We ultimately have this team from the House of Slaughter trying to wrap up loose ends. So they want to kill the monsters, yes, but they might also have to kill some of the townsfolk. And that's all going on while Erica is also trying to kill the last of the creatures. And it all just comes to a head. And basically, we have the older brother of one of the missing children confessing, saying that he murdered all these kids so that they have a cover story so that no one else in the town has to get hurt. And with Erica having dispatched the last of the monsters, they're basically free to go. And ultimately, Erica leaves the town on a bus, and that's kind of the end of the story. Again, there's so much more that goes on in the pages of these first 15 issues, but that's the overall shape of this epic. One of the things I like about this storyline as well is that it has this really fun, of course, horror vibe, but also action. But I think the real selling point for this series to me is actually the characterization. The characters are all so diverse and rich. I just feel like they're really just real living, breathing people. And there's something cinematic in how this is all done as well. I know that the paneling is oftentimes in kind of a wide rectangular format, or kind of these full page splashes, or they do this really unique thing where sometimes the panels will float across the two pages. So you have this kind of really interesting kind of horizontal reading where you don't stop at the page break, you go all the way across, then down to the next line, and all the way across both pages. It can be a little disorienting, but I think overall they lay out it in a way that makes really good sense. But it just feels really big and broad in some ways. But we also have the panel layouts having thick white lines between the paneling, so there's also this really good use of negative space, and it just really creates something a little bit unique compared to some of my other comic reading. I think that the artists on this as well, Werther, Dell'Edera, and some of the others, they really add a kind of moodiness and atmosphere to this work as well. Talk about a group of artists that all work together in tandem. The writer and all of the different artists included here, the penciler, the letterer, the colorist, I think everyone's just working so synergistically that we just have this unity of effect that's really, really powerful. But yes, against an already rich and really well-constructed plotline, I love the characters. The characters just jump out and feel larger than life. It also reminds me of kind of good sitcom shows, almost something like The X-Files, where, or maybe like the show Supernatural. If you're fans of either of those, series, I love this kind of feel that every episode has our main characters wandering into a new town, and you almost get to know, yes, more about the central characters and the bad guys they're dispatching, but also kind of the townsfolk at whatever random city you go into. And yes, this is a full 15 issues for one storyline, but it has that same feeling where you get to know this whole cast of characters, but other than Erica and maybe some of the members of House of Slaughter, you don't know if you're going to see any of these characters again. It's kind of like we're done with this chapter. And starting the second Deluxe volume recently, it is that very thing. You know, you go into this new town and there's this whole new group of characters you're introduced to. And to care about some of those characters as much as the central character, I think that that's where Tynion really shines. It's just so impressive and well done, and honestly, it's one of the most gripping parts about this work. This is an absolute page turner. It is so hard to put down. And like I said, I've read all of these issues before in paperback, but getting this deluxe edition, it was my first opportunity to go back and do a reread. And honestly, in just the 1 or 2 years it's been since I've read this, I'd forgotten just how striking this book is. Because I think on paper you can get all the ingredients, like, solid plot, good characters, great art, and yet it doesn't even sell everything you get when you actually read it for yourself. The pacing, the tone, just the atmosphere of the storytelling. It's so gripping. It's so captivating. And honestly, it's just so well done. I know this is heralded as a very, very beloved series, a modern horror classic, and I think it really deserves a lot of those accolades. But again, even rereading it, I was still just absolutely struck by the storytelling. And honestly, I found it almost as good as my very first read through. This book was just terrific. I love that we got a whole storyline in one single volume. Honestly, that's one of the drawbacks about the trade paperback collections, is that you have kind of 3 parts of one story across those first 3 volumes. And getting this deluxe edition, you not only get some extras at the back, you not only get this beautiful oversized format, this hardcover, but you also get the entire first story in one shot. You can binge read it, or you can take your time. The options are there, but having it all in one volume, honestly, this is a worthwhile upgrade. At the back of the volume, we do have the extras like you've been seeing. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the covers. Again, the only drawback for this collection for me, but we do have a lot of really brilliant behind-the-scenes artwork, production images, character models, and we have a fully transcribed interview with all of the different creators on this book: writer, penciler, colorist, letterer. It's just really brilliant, and I loved getting kind of behind-the-scenes details about how this series was constructed, or notable points, or things like that. I thought it was a really great extra. And with that, of course, we've reached the end of today's collection. And now all that's left to do is to give Something is Killing the Children Deluxe Edition Book 1 a grade. It's suspenseful, it's eerie, it's action-packed on every page, and it's frankly just beautiful. For all these reasons and more, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Something is Killing the Children Deluxe Edition Book 1 from Boom Studios an A. This is a must-read modern horror classic if you're a fan of this subgenre in the comic book medium. The characters are compelling and diverse and interesting, the plot is very, very fun, the sense of tone and moodiness is all just there. This is honestly some of Tynion's best work in my opinion, and I'm already an admitted fan of his, absolutely. Reading this for a second time, it definitely holds up, and reading it in an oversized format, well, it's just the way to do it. I would have loved to see the covers in this collection or some kind of cover art gallery, but still a phenomenal volume here. But let me know what you think of Something is Killing the Children in the comments, and thank you all so much for watching. A huge thank you again to all those at Boom Studios for providing this copy, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, comment, and maybe check out another video on your way out. Thanks, and have a good one.